Morning, students. Today we will start a new chapter from your history book, that is chapter number 3, Ruling the Countryside. In the previous chapter, students, from trade to territory, we came to know about how East India Company came to India and they established their power and acquired more and more territories. They set up their new administration, new justice, new army. So now, as they became the Diwan, so they wanted more and more revenues for their company to meet the growing expenses of the company. So, in this chapter, we will read about some new policies which they implemented to grow the revenues for the company, the Monroe system, and some improvements in the field of agriculture. Also, they introduced new crops like indigo, and we will be studying about the Blue Rebellion also. On 12th August 1765, East India Company became Diwan. So Mughal Emperor appointed the East India Company as the Diwan of Bengal, and this actual event took place in the Robert Clive's tent. You must have heard about Robert Clive in the previous chapter, who fought Battle of Plassey with Sirajuddaulah. So they acquired Diwan. They became Diwan, and this event took place in the Robert Clive's tent, where few Englishmen and Indians were present as witnesses. So, in the painting above, this painting which you can see here, in this it is shown as a very big event, as a big occasion taking place in the grand settings. So, this painter who painted this picture was commissioned by Clive to record the memorable events in Clive's life. So as Diwan, so now they became the Diwan. So the company became the chief financial administrator of the territory under its control. So now they were thinking, now by becoming Diwan, so they were thinking how to grow more revenues for their company. They started to think that how they should administer the land, how they should organize their revenue resources, and it has to be done in a way that they should get maximum revenue to meet the growing expenses of the company. They wanted more and more money to grow their company's power, and they also wanted to ensure that they could buy the products they needed and sell what it wanted. And the company's power was known as alien power. Why they were known as alien power? Because they did not belong to India. They had come from the Britain, so they were known as alien power. So they had to do very carefully because they did not want to disappoint the local rulers who were having previous authority. So and they needed to pacify those who in the past had ruled the countryside. So before them, those who were ruling the countryside, they enjoyed the authority and prestige. The company did not want to disappoint them. They want to control the local power, but they could not be entirely eliminated. The Mughal power, the local rulers, the Nawabs of Bengal, they cannot be eliminated, but they tried to control them. So how was this to be done? So now they were thinking new ideas that how to control the local rulers, the Nawabs of the country. So in this chapter we will see that how the company came to colonize the countryside, how they organized the revenue resources and redefined the rights of people and produced the crops it wanted. After becoming Diwan of Bengal, the company started purchasing cotton and silk from the revenue generated from Bengal. So, what happened as they became the Diwan, but they still saw themselves as a trader only. Okay, their main purpose was to do trade and get more and more power for their company, and they started, and now they have become the Diwan, so they started collecting revenue also from the people. It wanted a large revenue income but was unwilling to set up any regular system of assessment and collection. So the effort was to increase the revenue as much as it could, and they wanted to buy cotton and silk as cheap as possible. Okay, so they wanted to buy the goods on cheap rates and they wanted to sell on higher prices in their own country. So their main purpose was to collect large revenues from the local rulers and to buy the cotton and silk. So with that money only which they were collecting as revenue, they were buying cotton and silk. And within 5 years, the value of goods bought by the company in Bengal doubled. So before 1865, before 1865, the company had purchased goods in India by importing gold and silver from Britain. So before 1865, they were buying the goods with gold and silver. So gold and silver was coming into India and they were buying goods from that. But now the revenue collected in Bengal could finance the purchase of goods for export. But now after 1865, the revenue which was collected in Bengal could finance the purchase of goods. So they were not bringing anything from Britain to buy the goods. The revenue which was collected by them, that was only used to purchase the goods at cheap prices. So see what kind of policies they were having. Now the money was also taken by the company and the goods were also taken by the company. So this lead to a huge loss for the company. So huge loss for the Bengal, not for the company. So it lead to huge loss for the Bengal, and the peasants, they became more and more poor. So it was clear that Bengal economy was facing a deep crisis. The economy of Bengal was facing deep crisis. Artisans and peasants, they started leaving Bengal. Artisans were deserting villages because they were not getting anything now. So everything was taken by the company. They were not having money. They were leaving the villages. They started leaving the villages since they were being forced to sell their goods to the company at low prices. Okay, so why they started leaving the villages? Because the company was forcing them to sell their goods to the company only, and that too at low prices, so that they were not getting any profit out of that. And peasants, they were already under debt, so they were unable to pay the dues that were being demanded from them. So they were in great loss. The whole economy of Bengal was facing deep crisis. Artisanal production was in decline. The decorative items which they used to make, small handicrafts items which they used to sell, so everything was in decline. And agricultural cultivation showed signs of collapse because they did not have money to do the agriculture also. So then what happened next? So in 1770, you can see that in 1770, a big famine hit Bengal. And in this famine, millions of people were killed. A big famine hit Bengal in 1770. This killed about 10 million people. You can see here in this picture also the condition of the people during the famine. So there was no water, no food, no money. Everything was destroyed. So in 1770, a terrible famine killed 10 million people in Bengal, and about one third of the population was wiped out. Now, after the famine, the economy of the Bengal lead to ruins. So, if the economy was in ruins, could the company be certain of its revenue incomes? From where would they get the income if the people of Bengal would not have money? The economy of Bengal was deteriorated. So now most company officials began to feel that investment in land had to be encouraged. So they came to the other side now. Instead of collecting the revenues from the people, because this was not possible now, because the economy of Bengal was in ruins, the people were facing famines, there was no food, no water, the peasants were artisans and they were deserting the villages, they were leaving the villages. Now the company decided that there was a need to improve agriculture. So now they came towards the agriculture sector. The company wanted to improve agriculture in order to stop the decrease in its revenues. So they thought that if they would invest something in agriculture, that would give employment to the people and they will be able to grow more crops, and if money will come back again and they will be getting their revenues. So this was their scheme, that they would invest in agriculture and ultimately they will get revenues out of that. So they thought that investment, they should invest in land and agriculture had to be improved. So now as the company decided to invest in agriculture, so how was this to be done? So they had a debate on this question for 2 decades, and the company finally introduced the permanent settlement in 1793. So when this permanent settlement came into being, that time Charles Cornwallis was the Governor General of India when the permanent settlement was introduced. Now, what was this permanent settlement? So, by the terms of the settlement, there were Rajas and Talukdars, and these Rajas and Talukdars were recognized as Zamidars, and they were asked to collect rent from the peasants and pay revenue to the company. So Rajas and Talukdars were recognized as Jamidars and they were asked to collect rent from the peasants and pay revenue to the company. And the amount which was to be paid was fixed permanently, means no increase or decrease in the amount to be paid to the company, and it was fixed permanently, that is it was never to be increased in future. It was felt why they did so. So they felt that this would ensure a regular flow of revenue into the company. Okay, so regular revenue of flow will come because the peasant would be thinking that there is no increase in the this amount ever, so there would be fixed flow of revenue. And at the same time they encourage the zamidars also to invest in improving the land, because if they will improve the land, so what extra benefit will come, that would come to the zamidar, so they would be benefited. So that's why it was their policy, it was their scheme. So since the revenue demand of the state would not be increased, the zamidar would benefit from increased production from the land. So this was the policy of permanent settlement, which was introduced by the company in 1793, in which they were asked to collect rent from the peasants and pay to the company, and it was never to be increased, and the additional benefit which would come after improving the agriculture, that would be given to zamidar. So this was the policy. So but do you think that was it so easy for this policy to be implemented? Were there no problems? No, there were problems. So what was the problems? What were the problems in the permanent settlement? First of all, that the rent was too high. The revenue which had been fixed by the company was so high that the zamidars found it difficult to pay. Okay, so the number one is the rent was too high, and when the zamidars were failed to pay this revenue, this fixed amount, the result was that they lost their zamidari. And these zamidaris, they were auctioned by the company. So whosoever wanted to take the zamidari could uh, could buy it by giving money to the company. So zamindar were auctioned by the company. Third was, though income was increasing, but the company was getting fixed revenue. So according to the rules of the permanent settlement, they said that the settlement, this fixed income was not, fixed revenue was not to be increased ever in the future. So by the first decade of the 19th century, the situation changed. The prices in the market rose, the market became high, and cultivation slowly expanded also. So there was an increase in the income of the zamindars, but no gain for the company because they could not increase the revenue demanded, which had been fixed permanently. Okay, and zamindars, they were not keen to improve agriculture. Why they were not interested in improving agriculture? They did not have an interest in improving the land because some had lost their lands in the earlier years of this settlement. When this settlement came in the initial time, so that time they had lost their lands. Others now saw the possibility of earning without the trouble and risk of investment, means without investing in the land they were getting benefit out of that. So they did not see any reason, any valid reason to improve agriculture. And as long as the zamindar could give out the land to tenants and get rent, they were not interested in improving the land. They were giving the land to the tenants and they were getting rent from them, and they were not interested in improving the land. On the other hand, in the villages, the cultivator found the system extremely oppressive. The system was not accepted by them. The rent he paid to the zamindar was high. First of all, the rent was too high, and to pay the rent, they often had to take loan from the money lender. Okay, they often have to take loan from the money lender, and when they fail to pay the rent, he was evicted from the land he had cultivated for generations. So then, if they failed to pay the rent to the zamindar, they were evicted, they were removed from the land he had cultivated for generations. So now, after the permanent settlement, they devised one more system that is called Mehelwadi system. Okay, so they wanted to have more and more revenues, and they were searching for new possibilities from where they could extract more revenues. So in search of this, they started exploring new lands in Bengal. So in the northwestern provinces of the Bengal presidency, so most of this area is now in Uttar Pradesh, an Englishman called Holt Mackenzie. So this Mehelwadi system was developed by Holt Mackenzie in 1822. So Holt Mackenzie devised this new system which came into effect in 1822. He felt that the village was an important social institution in North Indian society and needed to be preserved. So now they went to the village areas. Under his directions, collectors went from village to village. They inspected the land, they measured the fields, they recorded the customs and rights of different groups. Means they had a wholesome idea of the village system. And the estimated revenue of each plot within a village was added up to calculate the revenue that each village had to pay. So village was called Mehel, and they decided to take the revenues from the villages also now. So this demand was to be revised periodically, not permanently fixed. So see, this is the difference. In previously in the permanent settlement, the revenue was fixed, which was to be given by the zamindars. But now in the village system, in the Mehelwadi system, the demand was to be revised periodically, means they would increase in the future and it was not permanently fixed. So the charge of collecting the revenue and paying it to the company was given to the village headman rather than the zamindar. So in the permanent settlement, it was the zamindar who was paying the revenue to the company, but now there was a village headman which was to pay the which first he used to collect the revenue from the village people and then give to the company. So this system came to be known as Mehelwadi settlement. Again, I'm revising. So it was developed by Holt Mackenzie in 1822, introduced in the northern parts of India. Fields were measured, recorded, revenue of each plot added up to collective revenue of village. Revenue was revised periodically. Very important, it was not permanent. And village headman collected the revenue in place of zamidar, and village was called as mahal. Okay. So again the Mahalwadi system says that first the land of the village was to be measured. Okay, first the land of the village was to be measured, and the village is known as mahal. And who would collect the revenue from the village? It was the village headman who used to collect the revenue from the village and pay to the company. So in the northern parts of India, or you can say northern parts of Bengal, in Bengal we read about Mahalwadi system. So Mahalwadi system was implemented in Bengal provinces. Now at the same time, in the southern territories, in the southern part of India, after the company had a war with Tipu Sultan, so they also tried to have a system in the southern parts of India also. So this system was known as Ryotwari system, or maybe known as the Munro system also. Okay, so it is known as Ryotwari system. It is given in your book as the Munro system also. So the Munro system, in the British territories in the south, there was a similar move away from the idea of permanent settlement. Means they wanted to move from the idea of permanent settlement. Permanent settlement means fixed income they were getting, and they wanted to have now, because as they know that more income was coming to the zamidars and the peasants, so they also wanted to have more income. So they implemented these schemes. Ryotwari system came into being. The new system, it was devised by Captain Alexander Reed on a small scale. So first this Ryotwari system was tried on a small scale by Captain Alexander Reed in some of the areas that were taken over by the company. But subsequently it was developed by Thomas Munro in 1820. Okay, and then it extended all over South India. So it was developed by Governor of Madras Thomas Munro in 1820. It extended all over South India. So both these, Reed and Munro, felt that in the south there were no traditional zamidars. Zamidars were not there. The settlement had to be made directly with the cultivators. So ryots were directly the cultivators who had tilled the land for generations. Their fields had to be carefully and separately surveyed before the revenue assessment was made. So first they measured and surveyed their fields, that how much revenue they could impose on them, so that they can grow their company's power and have the expenses for the company. So Munro thought that the British should act as paternal father figures protecting the ryots under their charge. So they pretended that they are protecting the ryots, but actually they were exploiting them because they were eating their income. So this was also the system which came into being. It was developed by the Governor of Madras Thomas Munro in 1820 and introduced in the southern parts of India. Mahalwadi system was in northern parts of India. It was in Bengal, so it is in southern parts of India. Fields were measured, revenue was revised periodically, not fixed. Britishers collected the revenue, and peasants were the owners and called as ryots. So this is the pictorial representation of Ryotwari or Munro system. If you remember, in the Mahalwadi system, they used to measure land, and that the village used to give the revenues. They used to pay the taxes, revenues to the village headman, and then it went to the company. So, but in the Ryotwari or Munro system, they measured the lands first, and then the peasants or ryots were involved instead of zamidars. Okay, zamidars are not involved here. Peasants or ryots are involved, and they are paying the taxes directly to the Britishers. Okay, so this is the pictorial representation of the Monroe system. So now, do you think all these systems like permanent settlement, Mahalwadi system, Rotwadi system, they all went well? So everything was fine. Peasants were happy? No, not at all. So all was not well either with the peasants or with the company also. So within a few years after the new systems were imposed, it was clear that all was not well with them. Neither the company or with the nor with the peasants. So driven by the desire to increase the income from land, so why did the company impose these systems on the peasants? They thought that this would increase their income also, and when they demanded high revenue, so they thought that the peasants would do more agriculture practices, and they would invest on improving their agriculture, on they would invest in their land. But this did not happen. So they had a desire to increase the income from land. Revenue officials, they fixed too high a revenue demand. Their demands were too high, so peasants were unable to pay. Riots fled the countryside. So, as a result, what happened? The amount of the tax was very high, and peasants started deserting the countryside. Deserting means leaving. So, they started leaving that areas because they could not pay the taxes which were imposed by the company because it was too high. So, they fled the countryside, they ran away from there, and villages became deserted in many regions. So in the picture you can see they are leaving the villages. So the villages became deserted in many regions. Optimistic officials, the company officials, they had imagined that the new systems would transform the peasants into rich enterprising farmers, but this did not happen. So for today, only up to this much. So we have covered the permanent settlement, Mahalwadi system, Rotwadi system. So in the next lecture, we will be studying about the crops. Okay. So for today, bye bye.